She's getting mad at me. Do it again. All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on a farmhouse table. All right, so tell me what project you're working on.
I am building a farmhouse table with breadboard ends for one of our best friends. So I'm excited to do this project. It's out of knotty pine, which I've never used before. It's different than like Home Depot pine. It's harder. I'm not really sure what's different about it. People at hardwood stores says it's better. So anyway, it's in 12-foot lengths, and this table's only going to be 7 foot long. So we have got to cut it to length, mill it down, because you can see it's not square or flat at all. Those two are both a smidge over. Okay, so we've got my boards cut rough length. They're a little over 6 foot. After it's all glued up, then I'll cut it, square it up on the ends. So the next thing you do is lay out kind of what you want the grain to look like, and you look at your end grain, and you see how this is going down. This is going up, down. That one, I don't know. That one's kind of a middle one, so it's hard to tell. And then this is going up. You want to alternate your grain to help with warpage, because your boards are going to shrink and expand across the grain. So this way, it'll never, your length will never change. But especially with the humidity, I guess, in Louisiana, as stuff dries and then as it gets wet again, it will shrink and contract across the grain, and it'll make your boards a nice curved feature. So you try to up and down to kind of help with that. And then if I was doing something wider than 36, this is like 39 1/4, but it's going to end up about 36 inches. When I do something wider than that, then on the bottom I actually do a little channel and put some metal in there to help prevent it from warping. The next step, after you've cut it up and laid out your pattern kind of, is going to be running it through the joiner. The joiner will take and make flat sides. I don't know how else to say it. You can run it through the planer and it's going to smooth it out, but the joiner is going to take the warp out of it. If any has any little twist or warp or bow, it will flatten that out. So you do one side to get a flat surface, and then turn it and get a flat edge on the second side, so you have a 90-degree, and then after that we'll run it through the planer and then the table saw to hopefully get 4 flat sides parallel. You can talk on this too, it ain't on me. Are you recording? Yeah, a lot of editing out on this one.
Guys, if you ain't realized, this is her shop. Also in the house is her shop, which is our spare bedroom. This is a free air conditioning, free heat,
yeah,
fresh air shop.
Don't have to worry about dust collection too much because it just blows away.
We actually use the shavings for various things, the horse trailer, the chicken coop, and the
garden.
So we'll recycle from the chicken coop into the garden, and from the horse trailer into the garden after our additives are added. Manure.
this last piece I just did, it was a little bit over 8 inches. And like I said, my joiner blade is only 8 inches. So you can see here, the blade, I don't want to turn it, but the blade only comes to here. But I've got a little extra room to where I can get a piece that's wider than 8 inches through. And what happens when you do that, you end up with a little lip that hangs off that's not getting jointed. So this is all nice and flat. This piece here is not. This piece, I'll probably just hand plane that down because it's not very big. I number my boards just to kind of keep up with how I've got them laid out. And like you can see, because of the way you do the up and down, looking at it right now, every other board is pretty. These two, the other side is the jointed pretty side. So my next step will be running them through the planer, and that will make this side parallel to the flat side. And they'll be all pretty and all the same thickness, because you can see some of these had to be jointed a bit more than others, so it's a little low. But once they're all planed to the same thickness and then cut down to width, it'll be pretty. Okay, this is my planer. It's 12 or 13 inches wide. Goes up to like 6 inches. But you set your height of your blade at about the thickest part of your board. So its first board is about 1 7/8 inch. So you just start running it through the planer, and it will make you put your pretty jointed side down, and it's gonna plane this side nice and pretty, and it's gonna make it parallel thickness to this side. Since I'm outside, these girls are joining us, our shop chickens. They are not afraid of power tools at all. One point last year, I had one of them literally perched up on the sidebar, I don't even know what you call it, of my miter saw the whole time I was cutting. They're not bothered at all by the noise. They'll actually come over here and eat the sawdust. Planed up. You can see it all is looking really pretty. I still have to cut them to width. When you get done with that third step, all you've got left rough is one side. So then that's when you run it through the table saw, cut it to your width, and you're good to go. So right now we started off at 39, I think. I don't remember. We're at 38 1/8. So by the time we cut these all down to about 7 1/4, it'll be roughly 36, maybe a smidge more. And then it will be ready to glue up. And then I still have to do my, once I have my final width, then I will mill up some wood for my breadboard ends. That way I know how long they need to be. And then when it comes time to put this together, all I use is glue, and a lot of times I'll use some biscuits. Biscuits have absolutely no strength to them. They're just for alignment. As you can see, some of this is, and I don't know if this is the sawhorses underneath here are not very flat either, but it's looking like something's not completely square, but it'll it helps with alignment. It doesn't help with any of the strength. Glue on these tabletops is plenty of strength to hold them together for you. Alright, so today we're going to cut down the boards I did yesterday for the tabletop. I'm going to take the last rough edge off, cut them all down to about 7, not quite 7 1/4, to where it'll end up at about 36 inches overall width. So that's the first thing I'm doing. I'm gonna rip these down, put them together and see what it looks like. Okay, so we finally have a 4-sided squared board. So like when you go to any big box store and buy lumber and that has the 4S, your select wood, that's basically what you're buying. Something that has been squared up on all 4 sides. So we did the first side by running it through the joiner, which made one side flat. And then we did it against on its side and got the second edge flat, so it's a 90 here. Ran it through my planer for the third side, which made it parallel to this side. So we have 3 sides. And then the final step was running it through the table saw, which squared up this 4th side, took off that rough edge, and has it parallel to this side. So you have 4 sides, all nice and square. So it should line up and give us a pretty flat, level tabletop. For this particular table, we're doing a completely flat surface. So when it is glued up, you shouldn't be able to tell the seams there. It should look like one flat tabletop. I've had some tables where they want the more of a rounded, where you can tell your boards are butted up together. So for those, I do the same process, but then I come back and on both edges here, just use either a small round over bit with my router, or sometimes I'll just, depending on how rough they want it, run my sander over it and just round those edges back over just a little bit on these top edges, so when it is glued up you have that little bit of a separation you can tell each of your boards. But this one's gonna be nice and flat and pretty. On one of these boards, sometimes when you go to the lumber place, especially dealing the hardwood, it's just all stacked up on pallets, and it was cold and windy and it's outside. So I just really was looking at the top of the boards. We didn't flip them over much. This one, got home and realized this whole hunk right here. So I'm not gonna be able to use this for any kind of top. I can use part of it, so I'm trying to figure out, I've got to still do both the bench and the tabletop will have aprons, the part that goes underneath the tabletop between the legs. So just trying to figure out how I can still use this piece, at least part of it. I still have a whole 12-foot board over there to use, so I've got plenty of wood, that's not a problem. But this one, I'm thinking my aprons for the bench are shorter, probably 9-10 inches. So I can probably cut just this end off, mill it up, rip it down, and I've got bench aprons, short aprons. And so really all I'll be wasting is this. I mean, I can even just rip this down, throw that away, and still have a 2x for whatever else I might need in the future. And then I can just cut one end of this leftover board for the long aprons on the bench. And I'll still have wood left over, which is not my norm. So we have finished milling up all of our rough cut lumber. If you saw the process, joining, planing, cutting it on the table saw, and then I just ran all the big pieces down to 2x roughly for the aprons. All that's left is to cut them to length, and then I'll be joining them. Haven't yet decided how I'm going to. I want to get more into mortise and tenon stuff, so I might try a little bit of that, but that's the next step. We'll be actually assembling, gluing up the tabletop, and then aprons into the legs. Super easy process there, and then we will have a table.
We can't have that.
It's how I talk.
I know that's how you talk.
Not an actress. Okay, so make sure you come back to watch the next video, which will have the actual assembly of the farmhouse table, including glue up, breadboard ends, which is something a lot of people question how to do. I've watched many YouTube videos and finally kind of have it down. So come back and watch that, and the attachment assembly of the aprons to the legs. Thank you.
Subscribe.
I ain't say it, I'm done.
Guys, I can't get her to say subscribe to the channel, like the channel, and thanks for being with us. See you on the next video. Silly.
I got sawdust everywhere. I need you to clean that so we can get some food.